The knock wasn't normal. It was loud, angry, like they wanted to break the door. Before I could reach the handle, Karen's voice cut through the air. "That's him! Arrest him now!" Two men in dark uniforms stood there, hands near their belts, eyes cold. One of them said I was trespassing on HOA property. I stayed still, because my kid was behind me, shaking. Karen smiled like she already won. She waved a paper inches from my face. Some HOA notice with bold red lines saying my house was seized. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "You don't belong here." That's when one of the men stepped forward and said my car was already marked for towing. I felt that burn in my chest. Not fear, something worse. The injustice. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could say a word, the front door behind me opened again, and my wife stepped outside, calm, silent, and the metal badge on her chest caught the light. The fake cops froze. Not slowly, instantly. Karen's smile slipped, just for a second. Then she laughed like it was nothing. "That badge means nothing here," she said, waving her hand. My wife didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just looked at the two men and asked one simple thing. "Which department are you with?" They glanced at each other. One of them said a name, but he said it wrong. I saw my wife's jaw tighten. She took out her phone and stepped closer. Close enough that Karen backed up without meaning to. "You want to keep standing on my husband's land?" my wife said softly. "Or you want to walk away before this gets ugly?" Karen snapped, shouting about HOA power, about rules, about how she already called this in. Then a tow truck turned the corner and hooked my car while my kid started crying behind the door. That was the moment Karen crossed a line she couldn't uncross. My wife hit one button on her phone and said a sentence that made the air feel heavy. "Dispatch, I need real units, now." The tow truck driver stopped when he saw my wife's badge, but Karen screamed at him to keep going. "They're lying." "Do your job," she yelled, pointing at us like we were criminals. One of the fake cops whispered something to the other, panic creeping into his voice. I noticed sweat on his neck even though the air was cold. My wife didn't move. She just watched, waiting. Sirens echoed far away, not close yet, but close enough to change everything. Karen tried to regain control, saying the HOA board approved all of this, saying I failed inspections that never happened. Then she did something cruel. She pointed at my kid and said, "If he steps outside, that's trespassing too." Silence hit hard. My hands shook, but my wife's voice stayed steady. "You just threatened a child," she said. One of the fake cops took a step back. The other reached for his radio and realized too late it wasn't even turned on. That's when headlights flooded the street, and Karen whispered almost to herself, "This isn't how it was supposed to go." Real police cars rolled in, lights flashing blue and red across Karen's perfect lawn. Neighbors opened doors, phones already up, recording everything. Karen rushed toward the first officer, talking fast, waving her HOA papers like they were law. The officer didn't even look at them. He looked at my wife instead and nodded. "Ma'am," he said, respectful. That one word broke Karen. She started shouting that my wife was lying, that badges can be fake, that she knew people in the city. One of the fake cops tried to slip away, slow and quiet, but another officer stopped him with one hand. The tow truck driver unhooked my car without a word and backed off like he wanted no part of this. Then the officer asked Karen a question she didn't expect. "Why are you on a property you don't own?" Karen went quiet. She said the HOA owned it. My wife pulled out a folded document and handed it over. The officer read it once, then again. "This land isn't under any HOA," he said. "It never was." Karen's face drained, and someone in the crowd said out loud what everyone was thinking. "So she lied?" Karen started shaking her head, slow at first, then fast. "That paper is fake," she said, pointing at the officer like she was still in charge. My wife didn't react. She tapped her phone and turned the screen around. A video played. Karen on our porch 3 days earlier, sticking that HOA notice on the door, talking on the phone, saying, "Once the cops scare him, he'll leave." A few neighbors gasped. One laughed under his breath. Karen rushed forward, trying to grab the phone, but an officer stepped between them. Then another clip played. Karen paying those two men cash, calling them my officers. One of the fake cops dropped his head. The other swore under his breath. The officer looked at Karen and said, "You filed a false report, trespassed, and hired impersonators." Karen's voice cracked. She tried one last move. "You don't know who I am." My wife finally spoke louder, clear enough for everyone to hear. "We know exactly who you are, and—" That's when the cuffs came. Out. Karen's screams echoed down the street as the officers handcuffed her. She kicked, yelled, and tried to argue, but the evidence was stacked too high. Her own words, her own video, and the eyewitnesses all around. The fake cops slumped against the patrol car, realizing they couldn't bluff their way out. My kid peeked around the corner, eyes wide, clutching my shirt. My wife knelt down, brushing a stray hair from his face, whispering, "It's over. You're safe now." The neighbors started clapping softly, some laughing, some shaking their heads at Karen's audacity. One of the officers walked over, handing me the paperwork to reclaim my land officially. I felt my chest swell, not pride, not relief alone, but a deep, quiet satisfaction. Karen's car was being towed, a perfect mirror of the chaos she had tried to bring to us. As the officers left, one neighbor said, almost to themselves, "Never mess with people who know their rights." And their family? I looked at my wife, her badge gleaming in the sun, and smiled. The twist hit me then. Karen thought she could control us, but she had underestimated everything: our patience, our proof, and most of all, our courage. That night, the street was quiet again, but the tension hung in the air like smoke. Neighbors peeked out from windows, whispering about what had happened. Some shaking their heads, others nodding in relief. I sat on the porch with my wife, holding a cup of coffee, trying to calm the adrenaline still racing through me. My kid sat between us, finally relaxing, playing with a toy car. Just when I thought it was over, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't finished. HOA isn't done with you yet." My stomach dropped. I showed my wife. She frowned, then smiled, that quiet, confident smile. "Let them try. We're ready." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about one crazy Karen. This was about protecting our home, our family, and standing up to anyone who thought they could take it away. The twist? We weren't just victims anymore. We were the ones everyone would remember. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Whispers floated from porch to porch about Karen's arrest, the fake cops, and the footage my wife had captured. But then a new tension started creeping in. Another HOA letter appeared, not on my door this time, but slipped under my neighbor's mat. It was the same handwriting, same threats, but this time the language was sharper, hinting at lawsuits and fines. My wife didn't flinch. She gathered the neighborhood for a quick meeting in our driveway, showing everyone the video evidence and explaining how Karen had impersonated officers. People began murmuring about taking legal action together. Suddenly, a black SUV rolled slowly past our house. Windows tinted, its presence unnerving everyone. My kid clung to my leg. I felt a chill, realizing the battle wasn't fully over. Karen had allies, and they were bold enough to test us. But my wife's hand found mine, squeezing it, and whispered, "Let them come. They're about to find out who they're messing with." That night, the twist hit. What seemed like victory yesterday was just the opening move in a much bigger game. Over the next few days, strange things kept happening. Packages that weren't ours appeared on the porch. Tires were slashed on a neighbor's car. Even our mailbox got a nasty note. Next time, it won't just be words. The neighborhood, once quiet, was tense. But my wife stayed calm. She set up hidden cameras, started documenting everything, and quietly contacted the local authorities again, making sure we had every angle covered. Then, out of nowhere, an attorney showed up at our door, papers in hand, claiming Karen was trying to sue us for harassment. I felt my chest tighten. This was bigger than just one crazy HOA. Karen, it was a full-blown campaign to intimidate us. My wife looked at me, her eyes hard but steady. "They don't know we have backup," she said. That's when the twist landed harder. The attorney wasn't acting alone. Someone else, someone with real power, was behind this. And they thought we'd be easy to scare. But we had plans they didn't even imagine. The backup showed up when we least expected it. A city inspector, 2 state officers, and a federal agent pulled into the street together. Neighbors stepped out again, phones up, hearts racing. The agent walked straight to me and said my name like he already knew me. He told everyone, loud and clear, that the land dispute was already under investigation. Because this wasn't just HOA abuse. Karen had been running a scam for years, forcing families out, flipping properties through shell names. The black SUV from before? It belonged to her partner. The lawsuit? A last move to scare us quiet. My wife handed over everything. Videos, messages, threats, and the agent nodded slowly. "This ends today," he said. Later, as they loaded boxes from Karen's house across the street, my kid asked me if bad people always lose. I looked at our home, still standing, still ours, and said, "Only when good people stop staying." Quiet. One neighbor said a line that stuck with everyone. She tried to take his land, but lost her freedom instead. And that's when I understood the real twist. Karen thought power came from papers and fear. She forgot it comes from truth, and from knowing exactly who you're standing against. By evening, the neighborhood felt almost normal again, but a quiet buzz of excitement lingered. Karen was in custody, her fake cops exposed, her HOA schemes unraveling. People whispered about how my wife had handled everything, calm, precise, unstoppable. Just when I thought we could breathe, the phone rang. It was a local news reporter asking to interview us live. "Your story went viral. Everyone wants to know how you stood up to HOA tyranny." My wife exchanged a glance with me, then nodded. We agreed. On live television, she told our story about the threats, the fake cops, the harassment, the evidence, and how we kept calm. Karen's face flashed on the screen from footage, her lies exposed in front of thousands. As we finished, the reporter asked the line that would be remembered. "What's the one thing you want people to know?" My wife looked straight into the camera, her voice steady. "Never let anyone tell you that your home isn't yours, and never underestimate the people who protect it." The twist. Karen's network started collapsing overnight. Allies who once supported her turned on her, scared of the legal consequences. What began as a single HOA battle became a full exposure of a corrupt empire. And we had unwittingly started it. Our quiet life was back, but with a new respect, a new story, and a lesson that no amount of fake authority could ever outweigh truth and courage. Weeks later, life settled into a fragile peace. The neighborhood smiled again. Kids played in yards, and the news stories about Karen faded, but not completely. One afternoon, a letter arrived, official-looking, addressed to me. My heart sank for a moment, but my wife grabbed it first, scanning the contents. It was from the city planning office. Karen had filed one last appeal, claiming some obscure technicality over the property. I laughed, partly in disbelief, partly in frustration. My wife smiled, calm as ever. "Let's make sure she never bothers anyone again," she said. She made one quick call, and within hours, city officials confirmed the land ownership in our favor, closing every loophole Karen had tried to exploit. That night, we sat on the porch, the cool air brushing our faces, my kid asleep inside. I asked quietly, "Think she'll try something else?" My wife looked at me, a spark of mischief in her eyes. "Maybe, but next time she'll be the one running scared." The final twist. We realized the power wasn't just in defending our home, it was in showing that courage, proof, and calm determination could topple even the most brazen, entitled villain. And somewhere deep inside, I knew Karen's defeat wasn't just ours. It was a warning to anyone who thought they could abuse power. Exactly. Our story ends here, with justice served, the family safe, and the lesson clear. No amount of entitlement, fake authority, or intimidation can stand against truth, courage, and those who protect what's theirs. Karen's reign of lies and threats crumbled, her schemes exposed, and the neighborhood could finally breathe again. The final twist wasn't just her defeat, it was the reminder that real power belongs to those who act with integrity, stand united, and never back down when their home and family are at stake.